Welcome to our newest adventure for first responder wellness. No one fights alone. In-depth conversations about mental health and culture in the first responder space. We're joined by your co-hosts Austin Pedersen and Brad Shepard.
My friend, it's glad. I'm super glad. I can't even talk. Okay, hold on. I'm going to start over on that. Oh my
You've been
God,
talking
man.
for 3 days, man. You know,
Right?
we're leaving it in. We're leaving it in. That's the
I
best
am
opening
talked
you've
out. I'll
ever
give you
had.
that. That's 3 days of when I work conferences. I work them pretty hard because I love people. I love connecting with people, and I guess my talk function is in the off button. But man, it's glad I can't still do it. What the fuck is going on with me?
Hey, I'm glad it's happening to you and not me. Okay, you know.
I'm glad to have you back, Austin.
There we go. Well, I think you were lying by saying that, which
That
is
is
why you
not
had
that is not it.
such a tough time
There may
getting
be
back.
some other passive aggressive shit going on there, but that ain't it. I am super happy to have you back.
Well, I'm glad to be back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
man.
Mike, welcome to the No One Fights Alone podcast. Austin, welcome Mike Mette with Chicago PD, Chicago FOP. Mike, welcome to the No One Fights Alone podcast.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
We just recently had you out to Utah, man. What'd you think of what'd you think of Utah?
Oh, it's stunning, breathtaking. I mean, it was just flying in and flying out alone was worth the trip. You know, seeing the mountains and coming in over Salt Lake City, it was amazing. I tell you, like we were talking earlier, it's growing up, it's born and raised in Chicago, 47 years old, and as a kid, the only time we ever got out of the city was to go up to Wisconsin, up in Tomahawk, and it was the greatest time of our lives. And there was no hills, no mountains, no nothing. I mean, we didn't see anything like that growing up. So, as an adult, it's one of my things I love to do is take road trips. Starting to kind of influence my kids on that, and been taking them to Yellowstone out there, and they love it. So as they're getting older and older, just trying to get them to enjoy that stuff because growing up in the city, you get caught up in stuff, and that's all you know, and so you don't realize how beautiful this country really is.
The Mormon Church will be after you just sold Utah like that.
That's all right.
That was a great pitch. That was a great Utah pitch right there.
I mean, it's beautiful. Well, you saw me when I was there. I mean, I was like awestruck. I mean, I don't need to go to Hollywood to be, awestruck over seeing stuff. I mean, it's just the natural beauty of it.
You
It's
were
amazing.
nothing but smiles while you were there, but I think after the fly fishing excursion, man, you were a happy dude. You must have really enjoyed that.
For sure. And I tell you what was funny was driving from the airport to and from the airport. I couldn't believe how nobody uses their horn. I mean, accidents about to happen, semis about to get crushed cars. Nobody honks. I mean, in Chicago, I mean, everybody's laying on the horn just to get you to go a little faster. There, it's just like, oh, it's cool, no big deal.
I don't know. That might be why we have such shitty drivers. Maybe
nobody's letting you know that you're a shitty driver.
Yeah, I'm from California, and that's a land of shitty drivers, and Utah right up there with them.
I tell you what, I laugh because I try to be as much of a Christian as I possibly can in my daily life, and until I hit traffic. That just there's so many times I just laugh and have to look up and say sorry for the things I say and do when I'm caught up in traffic. Oh goodness, but
well, we all lose our religion a little bit in traffic, right?
Yeah, I had a very religious man I worked with for a long time, and he had the cleanest mouth of everything. And he told me once, he said, "There's 2 times that you're allowed to cuss. It's working with cows and in traffic." And
right, I won't feel so bad anymore.
That's right. Well, Mike, let's tell the listeners a little bit about before we get into your story. And you have an absolute crazy story. I don't know that I've heard a story quite as crazy as your story, but tell the listeners a little bit about what you do at your home agency there. just to give them some
So
context.
I'm still technically a Chicago police officer. Have been for it'll be 21 years this August, give or take some off time, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But the what I do now is since 2020, I've been the first vice president for the Chicago Lodge of the Fraternal Order of Police. The FOP is the largest uh, organization representing labor for law enforcement in the country. I think over 300,000 members. And, early on, John and I, John Canzera, our president, we kind of took a different direction from previous administrations and became more, I don't want to say full service, but we wanted to do more for our membership on a daily basis, and we got ourselves into the realm of officer wellness. And having been through a bunch of stuff on and off the job, John and I both know what that feels like to try to navigate those stresses and those issues by yourself. And we didn't want anybody else to have to do that. So we actually created our own wellness program here at our lodge on the second floor, which I'm at right now in my office. We created two other offices where we have clinicians and doctors seeing members. Our doctor from the First Responder Wellness Center, Dr. Reynolds, is actually here today, and so I'm really proud of what we've done, what we've been able to accomplish as far as and just having the ability to basically run to John and be like, hey man, I want to do this, and him being like, yeah, great, sounds good, and being able to do it without having to go through the minutia of a department and trying to get red tape taken down, right? So I hope it's benefited. I know it's benefited many members, but I'm hoping many more take advantage of that.
Well, I know just in the short what year or two that you and I have known each other, we've only been around each other a handful of times, but it's really Austin, correct me if I'm wrong here on the outward perception, but it's really doesn't take any time at all to get a sense of Mike, your passion for law enforcement, mental health, and wellness, because that's a frontal speech that comes out pretty quick and pretty early, and it's such a blessing to actually have that conversation in and really it segues into what is the basis of that, and I think we should just dive into it. Let's get into your story, because there's a reason behind why you're so passionate about this, and it's a ridiculously deep, lengthy, and heart-wrenching story of your journey. So take us on a little ride for the Mike Mette story.
I always, it's interesting because before I actually started doing therapy myself, or actually partaking in therapy for myself, I always thought that this was the only reason why I had issues later on, and as as the onion started getting peeled back more and more, realizing that there was more to it, right? I mean, there's stuff from my childhood and all that good stuff, that not necessarily led to me anything dramatic later on, but just the way it affects you and the way it your perception and the way you treat people and the way you act changes throughout your life. It just brought more of a perspective to that, to what I've gone through and why I am the way I am today. But go so 2005. I was 28 years old. I had just about a 2 years and 2 months on the job here at Chicago. I was at the time I was working midnights on the west side of Chicago, which is a very interesting place in and of itself. With it's one of our biggest crime-ridden neighborhoods in the city by far, and one of the most violent in the country. It's a 2 mile by 2 mile district that is maybe three by three, but still a small area, but a whole lot of homicides every year, a lot of shootings, a lot of drugs, open air, dope and all that good stuff. Getting on a job, it you didn't know how to deal with things, and you just kind of take the lead from other people. And it was one of those things growing up, listening to my dad and his buddies who were police talk about how much fun the job was. And you never heard him talk about the bad days and the days that bad things happened. So you didn't think much of it until you got on. You started seeing the dead bodies and the just the depravity that you see humans put on other humans. And it started taking a toll. You see a lot of guys start drinking, start doing risky things. And like I said, 2 years and 2 months in, I go out to Iowa to visit my brother Mark, who was living out in Dubuque. It was his 25th birthday, so go out there and we go out. We have a good time. We end up back at his place. A friend of his took us back, and we had it's a big college town, Dubuque. There's like 3-4 colleges all right in a general area, so a lot of young people. And apparently it was homecoming weekend for one of the colleges, and one of the kids that took us back to my brother's house said, "Hey man, there's a some kind of a party around the corner. This is a Saturday night, so I don't have to be at work until midnight Sunday night." And I'm like, "All right, fine, I can sleep all day Sunday, still make it back, plenty of time, go to work." And so we go over there and we walk in, and it's so interesting. I mean, it'll be 19 years this October that this happened, and I can still picture the house, picture the front door, picture walking in, picture walking downstairs, picture walking in and seeing the one guy in the kitchen doing dishes and going, "Why? What? There's nothing going on here, right?" So we walk downstairs, and there's a guy down there, and he's obviously had something to drink, and there's nobody else there. You could tell that there was a party at some point, but there's nobody else there. And so we look at each other. We're like, "All right, let's just get out of here." So we turn to start walking away. Say, "Oh, don't leave. It's $5 a cup. You guys can can drink all you want." Blah blah blah. We're like, "No, we're leaving." So we start leaving. Well, this guy, and I'm not gonna say his name, but believe me, I remember it. But we start leaving. He starts having words with some of the people that we're with, and by the time we walk outside, it gets into kind of a confrontation right at the front door. So my brother and we grab the kids. We like, let's just go. So we leave. We go back to my brother's house, and this is where it all turns to shit. And so I don't know. We're standing outside talking about, I guess the Bears were playing the next day. We're talking about we're going to go watch the Bears, have lunch, and then whatnot. So we're standing on the sidewalk next to my brother's house. And that's when the two guys from the house come back at us. And the one big guy, the taller guy, kind of pushes me out of the way, and he goes after one of my brother's friends. And then that's when the guy I end up getting in a fight with comes at me, pushes me back. Starts yelling at me. I'm telling him basically get the fuck away from me. Can I swear?
Yeah, absolutely.
Too late anyways. So I'm like, get back. I push him away from me. He comes back at me. He hits me a couple times in the chest. I keep pushing him away, and then when he finally, I think it was the third or fourth time, he finally comes at me, and I hit him. And so I punch him in the face. He falls down. He's knocked out. The bigger guy is still in the street trying to get at my brother's buddy. My brother's in between them. So I go out there. We kind of break that up. Come back. Police show up. And long story short, I end up getting arrested. And I vividly remember the guy telling me that I was under arrest after he found my police ID in my wallet. And so as he's taking me to the station, I'm asking, putting me in the squad car, I asked him, like, what am I being arrested for? And he wouldn't tell me at first. And I'm like, well, I want to know what I'm getting arrested for. So he finally tells me assault. I said, assault. I said, okay. I go, look over there. I'm like, that kid's in shorts and and socks. I said, are you telling me that I went to his house, grabbed him out of bed, dragged him over here, and then punched him? And then what? I'm like, these guys attacked us, and I'm going to jail. It just didn't make sense to me at all. So I end up the next day. There's like a Zoom bond court kind of thing, and I find out that I'm being charged with a felony of assault causing serious bodily injury to this kid. Um, so I'm like, all right, what the hell? What the hell does that mean? A felony. Like this guy attacked me in front, in front of my brother's house, and I'm getting charged with a felony, no less.
Followed
So
you followed you to your
it's
brother's house.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. And you know what was, and this is how ridiculous it really is. That night. So they put us all in the same cell. I mean, not the kid I hit, right? He ends up going to the hospital. I did break his nose, but the roommate, the guy that was the first one that actually pushed me out of the way, him, myself, and my brother, were all three of us are in the same cell at the county. That's where they held us, and I'm just laughing. I'm like, they're charging us with felonies, telling us that we did something so heinous, but yet they put us in the same cell with the guy that whose roommate we were so supposedly targeting and beating up. Um, so that was October of 2005, and I tell you what, it's if there was ever a time in my life where alcohol was a huge prevalent aspect, in it was after that. I'm like I went out and I had fun and I did my drinking, but after that, I'm surprised I never gotten into more trouble. From October of '05 till January or July of '07, when I kind of fast forward. I can't give away
The ending.
the
Yeah.
the ending of that saga. So all right, so that happens, right? I go on this woe is me, tour, drinking and doing stupid stuff, and because I'm I lose my police powers. They take away my star, my shield, my ID, and I've got the only thing that I have to show that I'm a police officer is a laminated Polaroid picture with my name written by somebody else from HR, saying that yes, I'm technically an employee of the Chicago Police Department, and it was you know. It was just an interesting time. Again, I'm surprised that I never got into more trouble with the way I was drinking back then. And fast forward to 2006, um, when the trial happens. It was a 3-day trial out in Iowa. It's having to drive there each and every day for court was a pain. Beautiful. I mean, it was a beautiful scenery. Like I said, I love the outdoors. So I mean, but it was go to trial, everything works in my favor, right? I'm like, oh, this trial's great. I'm like, these guys are lying. You can tell they're lying. This is bullshit, BS. All this stuff, right? They admit that they came after us. They admitted that they were the first ones to put hands on us. The witnesses say the same thing. I'm like, oh, this is great, right? This is working out. So the judge, I will say her name, Monica Ackley. She After the trial's over with, she's got, I forgot how long before she actually came out with her ruling, but she did it. I Not face to face. Like she wouldn't let me come to court to get the ruling. It was I found out at work. I was working callback, which is where I like to call it the land of the misfit toys, where we have limited duty people, but people that are stripped of their police powers, but can still work, um, taking non-emergency calls, stuff like that. And so I go into work one night, and I think it was December of 2006, and I log on to my computer and I go onto the Butte County website and look up my case, and I see the finding, and all I read was guilty, and I was just like, holy shit, what the fuck just happened? Like how did, and I just had this like fit of rage come over myself, and I walked up to my sergeant. I'm like, I'm leaving. I'll be back in a little bit. And sergeant doesn't say a word. I leave. I just start driving around the west side, in my personal car, just trying to blow off steam. And I eventually come back, and I go to read the judge's order, and I couldn't believe it. Everything she wrote in that order was pretty much spot on. She actually says that she gives me and my brother credit for breaking up the initial aggression from the other two guys. She even says that these guys attacked us and that this guy hit me several times before I finally hit him. But then she goes and says, "But I'm guilty because I had a duty to retreat." Said that I should have turned around and walked away from the situation while somebody was actually physically attacking me. Where it was the first time in my life that I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, my dad had already told me, you know what, I don't want you getting into fights, but if somebody's attacking you, you need to defend yourself, and it's one of those things where I kind of prided myself on being that way. Like I wouldn't, I do my best never get into a fight, but I'm not going to sit there and put myself at more risk by doing something that could get me, hurt. Um, and so I was found guilty in December of 2006. The sentencing wasn't for another almost 7 months because it was July 7th of 2007.
Sure.
And I go out to Iowa for the sentencing. And I didn't realize that there was a mandatory minimum at the time for the crime that they charged me with and found me guilty of. And it was a 5-year maximum or a 5-year mandatory minimum. So when she said that in court, and the attorney, the state's attorney or district attorney, I don't know what they call him out there. His last name was Potter, and he, basically said, we want him remanded, now over to the sheriff's department. I was like, I can remember. I was, I shaved my head back then too, so I was looking like Austin there. And I just knew that my head was just bright red, my veins were popping out, and I was just so pissed off. And I wanted to. I mean, I wanted. In my head, I was just like, this freaking judge, like, how, seriously? And so I remember my attorneys. I fired my original attorney. I got two new attorneys, Randy Ruckert, who was from Chicago, and he had I totally forget the other guy's name, but Randy, I love him to death, because he ended up doing my appeal, and but we did I asked to let me go home, at least get my affairs in order, right? And the judge is like, well, and of course the Potter, the DA, no, he needs to be remanded, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, well, I don't know. Like, so she turns around and there's like all these law books behind her bench. And she pulls out the law books and she starts going through it. And she's like, well, it does say that if I don't think he's a threat to anybody, that I can let him, I can give him time. So from July 7th, I was given time till October. I always say the 28th, but I'm not sure it was the 28th or the 26th of 2007 when I ended up having to turn myself in to the Dubuque County Sheriff's Department to start my 5-year sentence. Right. So no, I'm sorry, it was the 29th, October 29th. So I I remember it's and again, like it was kind of at that point, actually a little bit before that. Like I had said, I had been drinking a lot more than I normally would, and doing stupid shit, and I saw how it was kind of affecting my parents and my dad's health, and just seeing me, kind of spiraling out of control, and so I kind of took on the attitude of, what, it is what it is. shit happens. I'm going to prison, right? I'm just like, I'm going to prison, and hopefully something happens before I get there. But if not, hopefully something happens while I'm there, and I win an appeal, and I can come back and do something, right? Um, that being said, like, I mean, the whole time, like, to go, like, just to tell you, like, how my work ethic is, and I kind of laugh at this too. While I was at callback, I actually got 2 honorable mentions while I was there taking phone calls because I was answering so many calls and doing all this stuff, and just because it's just my nature. Just, I'm a worker, Give me something to do and I'll work. And so the weekend, I remember the weekend before. Going to turn myself in, and that Friday night, we my brother and a couple of his buddies took me out, and we went out to some places that were fun, right? And so the next morning, my buddy Casey was getting married, so it was like just a wild weekend. They got a couple hours of sleep. Girlfriend and I went to the wedding the next day. That night, stayed at the hotel there. That Sunday morning, went to the Bears game at Soldier Field. From Soldier Field, we went to. I went back home to. I was living in an apartment, uh, second floor of a house, and my buddy Zach, actually, or Josh, sorry, Zapata, he actually owned the building, and he lived on the first floor. So I went back, basically said goodbye to the girlfriend, got my stuff together, and then went downstairs, said goodbye to Josh, Steve, and a couple other guys that were there, and drove out to Plainfield where my parents and my sister lived. And it was interesting because my sister had young kids at the time, so they didn't know what was going on and why everybody was crying and this and that. So we told them I was going back to college for a second time. So I was